He's got his hand up. Is here.
Yeah. Okay, you can start now, Chair.
Okay, declarations of interest, agenda item number 2. None. Item number 3, to approve the minutes of the meeting held on the 4th of March. I will refer to these page numbers as per what you've been sent out. So, or sent out to those attending. So, page 1. Scrolling down, page 2. We're on page 3. On page 4. And page 5. Page 6. And page 7.
Chair, Barry Clark is raising his hand.
Sorry, I can't see that. Yeah. Right. So, is there a? I've lost your picture.
We can only see the top of his.
I saw the first flash of Barry on page 2, wasn't it, Barry?
There's something on page.
We can't hear you, Mr. Clark.
You're on mute, Barry. You're on mute.
Something wrong with his mic.
Oh, hi, it's Sharon Hughes from Committee Services. Can I ask Mr. Clark if he could leave and rejoin the meeting, because we can't hear you, so we think you may be having some technical difficulties. So it may be best to leave and rejoin. Thank you.
So, continuing with the items from the previous meeting, on page 6, I think we've done that, page 7, page 8, and that brings us to the close on page 9. So, someone to I've lost
Chair,
you.
Mr. Clark,
Chair, I think we need to deal with Barry before we move on to the next agenda item.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, that's good. Thank you. It first of all, on the page 1, my name is spelled incorrectly. It's a minor thing. I got an E on the end of my name. So
okay, I'll make that alteration.
Sorry?
I'll make that alteration, Mr. Clark.
Thank you. On page 3, countryside code, query, it says the rights and obligation to keep the rights of way in a usable condition. Is that the obligation for the person using it or the person owning the land?
That was referring to the person owning the land, Barry.
Thank you. I apologize for this, having to catch up, but the last time I was at the meeting, I had an internet connection of around about 20 megabytes per second. Today, I've got it up to 500, so I should be able to keep in touch with what's going on. Thank you. Now, the next one is regarding the, oh dear, so many pages, the meeting arrangements. It says in item 16 on page 8 that there is a Welsh Government requirement for local access forums to be held in person. Now, that Welsh Government requirement could well come up against the equality duty and the public sector equality duty as far as people with disabilities are concerned. Because some people would be able to come along to the forum either as visitor or as a forum member who are using what we're using today or a similar way of joining electronically, but couldn't not join as in person. So you can see the difficulty there, and that if that's what the Welsh Government requires, it would go against the equality duty. I've got a personal interest in this myself, so this is why I'm bringing it up. Then, regarding the request for a short presentation, yes, I'm ready. Thank you. That was it.
Right.
Can I come in, please, Chair? Sticky fingers not getting across the hand on that. Yes, Barry, you represent the sort of equalities on the forum. Of course, this is proven to be something of a sticky issue, should we say? Not so much from the equalities perspective, but the sort of general background legislation to this, because when the LAFs were introduced, it was a requirement to meet in person. Obviously, that when COVID regs kicked in, they wanted the LAFs to continue, so they amended the legislation, but they only amended it for a finite period of time, and that time has now elapsed. So there's been a sort of extension to that, but they're in a situation now where the current legislation is that we should be meeting in person, but they're giving flexibility on this. So at the moment, I'm expecting the legislation to be amended, but because it's tied into the Countryside and Rights of Way Act, it'll take some time to get through. So in the background, NRW are making noises, and I'll talk a little bit about in one of the committee papers coming up, are talking about that LAFs will be given the opportunity to either meet in person, sort of a hybrid meeting, or do it completely remotely. But that in its own right is not the only complication, because we've got the sort of local government reform act going on in the background, which is saying how councils have to how we have to operate, including the holding of meetings. And I'm trying to get hold of our National Access Chair to find out whether that legislation applies to the LAF. Now, my understanding from discussions with colleagues is it doesn't. LAF is independent of the local government regulations, as we are an independent forum, should we say, here to advise the local authority and others. So yes, it is a live issue, and we are aware of that, Barry.
Thanks. Just as an aside on that, the equality duty does not just apply to the council, but also it applies to the Welsh Government as well.
Yeah, across the board, Barry. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for explaining so well.
Yeah, thanks, Phil. Right, going back to the approval of the minutes. So I need someone to move and someone to second.
I move, yeah.
And then somebody to second it. Thank you very much indeed. And we're using, is it a hands up? All in favour? Yeah. Oh, losing connectivity here. Right. Okay, so if we're satisfied on item number 3, item number 4, matters arising from the minutes. Right, I'm back on the firm ground again now. Let's see if I turn off, open, raise, show conversations, show participants. I think that's where I was. Yes. Okay. Right. Yes. Matters arising from the minutes.
Sorry, I've done my bit. Thank you.
Thank you, Barry. Let's see. Apparently, at our last meeting, Nigel. I've forgotten the surname.
George, Nigel
George
George.
was, yes, he was my vice. But I've now been informed that there's been a reshuffle within the council, and so a new councillor has been appointed in his place. Am I correct there?
Yeah, that's right. I'm the new Nigel and Chris.
Right. Good morning and welcome to the Laugh meetings.
Morning.
Right.
If I can come in there, Chair.
Yep, please.
Welcome to Councillor Chris Morgan. We haven't actually met in person yet, but we have a series of meetings coming up. So I appreciate you coming into this a little green about the gills, perhaps. This is one of the action points from the minutes from item number 4. So I'd like to welcome Councillor Morgan. We are, of course, without a vice chair at the moment, but it's not my intention to hold an election today to replace Nigel George. We can perhaps do that at the next meeting, if that's okay with the forum.
Yes. Yeah. Right. Any other matters arising from the previous meeting?
There are a few, chairs. So I just run through them in the order of the the meeting. There was under item 4 again. There were effectively 3 items from the minutes. One was new councillor. Secondly was the issue of Parks coming in to give a presentation on the maintenance of the rights of way network, which I think Maggie Thomas asked for. Unfortunately, I had an email late last night saying that the officer was due to attend has had to pull out, so I'm afraid we won't be having a 10-minute presentation on that today. Again, I'll put it for the next committee meeting. The third item on there was an issue on level crossings. Well, that's coming up further on the agenda anyway, so we'll cover that off there. Other action points arising from those minutes was item 6, the regional reps for local access forums. I'll cover that in reports further on in the meeting. I understand item 7, June Morgan wanted some maps. Those have been forwarded to her. Item 11 was discussion on site visit. That's on the agenda further today as well. Item 12 was a further report on the issue of cyclists on footpaths. We're not going to be having that report today either, as I'm afraid the officer who attended the last meeting and gave the initial report has resigned from the council, so there's no one there to actually take that one forward at the moment. But again, I'll look into who we can get for the next meeting on that one. And the final item then was something on introductions, how we were asking people to introduce themselves and tell me about the organisation that they were representing on the local access forum. Barry drew the short straw on this one, as it was done in alphabetical order, and his connectivity problems meant that he was an easy victim to target at that meeting. So I think, Chair, perhaps if Barry can come at this point and give us a little bit of background about himself.
Thank you. Yes, will do. Right. A little bit about myself. Because of problems with immunosuppression, I have joined the 1 in 50 who are shielding. The government does not require me to shield, but advises me to shield, or advises people who have immunosuppression to shield. This is why I have an interest in whether I could join the forum today online or in person. But it's the same for other people who are disabled in this way. The local access forum here today is concerned about access to the countryside. But I also belong to the Caerphilly County Borough Access Group. Now that access group is concerned with access to the countryside and goods and services for disabled people. And that's in the one direction. It's in the one direction. It's concerned with access for disabled people to built-up environments. That's disabled-friendly houses, shops, parking, theatres, sports, community centres, and so on, as well as access to, well, things like, say, services and meetings like the one today. But in the other direction, the access group is also concerned with access for disabled people to the countryside. And I should point out that in my work as a chartered surveyor, I not only work in the built environment, I also work in the countryside. Now, for people who are disabled and need access to the countryside, there are advisory standards available. They'll be helpful for anybody who wants to know about these things. It's to help make parts of the countryside accessible to disabled people. And if you want to know more, then just Google this, and I'll say it slowly, and probably twice. The Field Fair Trust Countryside for All Good Practice Guide. That's the Field Fair Trust Countryside for All Good Practice Guide. Now, going on from there, the members of staff who work in the countryside section, and well, in the countryside section is many disguises and names for Caerphilly Council, does a lot of work and has done a lot of work in making parts of the countryside more accessible. But of course, there's still a lot to do. But what does that work mean when it's fruition? All sorts of different things. For instance, we have more than our fair share of hills around here. The work that the countryside section has done has provided lots of joy. The joy it brings of having some fairly level paths in the countryside parks, and with wheelchair-friendly parking nearby. That makes a real difference to people. So, and not only people in wheelchairs, but also people who have ambulant disablements, who are able to walk around but not able to walk very well. Also, another thing that's another example that's being done is the wonderful difference it can make to have a wheelchair-friendly kissing gate instead of a stile. Because as you're all aware, when you've gone over a stile in the countryside, they're not the easiest things to deal with. But if you had a wheelchair, or if you were ambulance disabled, it'd be even worse. This helps the wheelchair users, the pram pushing mothers, and the walking disabled as well, amongst others. So that's another example. And then just another minor example, I won't go on too far, but the joy it could bring to being able to rest at a level bench set a little way along the path, and it's set on along a slight incline. So the ground beneath the bench causes the bench height to vary, say, from about that much, about 1'6", 450 millimeters or 45 centimeters, up to about that much more. This enables people who are, particularly in their older age, who have difficulty in getting up and down from chairs, benches, to do it far more easily. It's a little thing. It costs very little to do, and when an extra to providing a bench. There are lots of examples of things that can be done fairly easily and make life easier for people. And there are even, as you well know, some country parks with disabled-friendly cafes and loos, which is wonderful. Now, changing the subject slightly, we are fortunate in this country to have the government legislation, can't even say it properly, the government legislation in place called the Public Sector Equality Duty. That legal duty was placed on public bodies such as the Caerphilly County Borough Council, Natural Resources Wales, the Welsh Government, and of course the UK Government, regarding equality as well as discrimination and victimisation. The equality duty itself ensures that all public bodies play their part in making society fairer by tackling discrimination and providing equality of opportunity for all. And that duty is a proactive one, not just a reactive one. So that's marvelous. And regarding that legal duty, we have been fortunate. As an access group and as disabled people, we have been fortunate over the years to have had champions on our side rather than working against us. We've had counsellors, we've had council staff, and others who have been wonderful and who are enthusiastic, who are and have been enthusiastically championing ways of ensuring that disabled people can have access to the countryside. Long may it continue to get better and better. Thank you.
Right, thank you, Barry, for the for your interest, for your background interest and your concerns. And yeah, I too have love to see benches every few yards along footpaths, something which is sadly missing in other local authorities. Right. Any other items there? We move on to Chair's report.
Shall I take this view, Chair?
Yes, please do, Phil. Yeah.
Actually, if I can interject a little before that on Barry's presentation to remind the LAF, perhaps it's timely, that if you do have any training requirements or anything that you think that the LAF should be trained on, please raise it with me, and we'll see what we can do about sorting out appropriate training for you, what you want. And provided it's access related, I'll be supportive of it as best as I can. We have previously done DDA type training with the Field Fair Trust at Parkham Darren. If you want refreshers on anything like that, then just please let me know, and we'll see what we can sort out. But that applies to every member of the LAF should they identify something that they want. And it could be, as I say, provided it's access related. I'm fairly open-minded. Perhaps if there was something from the farming side that was needed about sort of responsible sort of access to the countryside, and then we could get in touch with the farming union to do something. So it really is an open book there. Provided there's benefit to the forum, then I'm happy to support, Chair. Anyway, it's the Chair's report that I was going to report on, so I'll move on to that. There's not a massive amount to report from that. There was a national forum meeting held back on the 19th of May. Neither the chair or I were able to attend that one as it happened. I haven't had the detailed minutes back from that, but I obviously looked at the agenda of this, that, and the other, and had some sort of intel back from it. And the main items which were discussed were effectively threefold. It was firstly the changes to the local access forum regulations. We've got an agenda item on that later on, so I'll run through that at that point. Secondly, it was about the second point was about the sort of maintenance budgets across the local authorities of Wales for rights of way. I don't suppose we need a crystal ball to see what the outcome from that was. There's too little in there for the responsibilities that are there, and how they've been paid back, and there was some discussion about having to bid for monies to undertake maintenance. And then the third item then was about the what they call the rights of way improvement plan that I've talked about previously. And effectively the issue was how few local authorities were sort of taking forward these rights of way improvement plans in any meaningful form on the one hand, and secondly how they were being implemented on the other. What I have picked up from that is that the Natural Resource Wales and Welsh Government are looking to tie having a rights of way improvement plan into future grant funding bids and allocations to local authorities. So that's something that we need to action, and I'll mention something on that further on down the line and what Caerphilly is doing about that. That's your report, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed, Phil. Thank you for that. Item number 6 is the Gwent Green Grid.
Right, I'll take that one as well, Chair.
Yeah.
This is the Gwent Green Grid Partnership. It's something that I do a regular update on for the forum, as it's proving to be something of a I won't say money spinner, but a lifesaver in terms of the investment that's coming into the local authority through for access purposes. Now, the Gwent Green Grid, of course, it covers a whole multitude of sort of countryside issues. Environmental issues is probably a better way of putting it. So it includes things such as biodiversity, community environmental developments, access being one of them. So there's a raft of things that is covered. And it's a partnership between the 5 local authorities that formerly constituted Gwent, and one of its principal roles is to feed into the Public Service Board to ensure the environment stays at the fore of people's thoughts, really. So the initiatives that come out of this are both things that we adopt as a county, as it were, the old Gwent county, initiatives that run pan Gwent, and also then we have some flexibility in local initiatives on there as well. So it's kind of regionally led by Monmouthshire. They tend to be the core authority that employ most of the staff to go with it, but access is led by Torvine, and there's half a dozen or so core staff associated with this, each with their fields. We have one for access. We've got one for health and well-being, who is next on the agenda. So I have Des Jones with us to give a presentation on what he's doing on that. So there are some staff resources behind this initiative. But it really sort of focuses on 3 things. Firstly, there's the sort of strategy development that we'd be adopting across the county. And from our perspective, at the moment, there's a brief out for the preparation of a regional access strategy. Now, this is being done in the context of the Rights of Way improvement plan. So we're all 5 local authorities singing from the same song sheet. Now, some of you have heard me say this on ad nauseum, perhaps, that the idea is that we get our strategic policies in place, our strategic priorities agreed. And then our local ROIP is the actions that flow from that further down the line, where we have where we will be making our local decisions. The officer leading this as part of the Gwent Green Grid is a guy called Richard Garner, and I think actually it might be an idea for him to make a presentation to the next meeting of this forum. So. The other element of the strategic side of it is the regional LAF, and we're going to need to have the brief approved for that and what we do for the regional strategy. The objectives of which really are to sort of deliver green corridors for strategic access across the whole of the county of Gwent, identifying what our key priorities are, the preparation of the identification, should I say, of opportunities and the management strategies that we can put in place to see those through. And then secondly, the sort of outcome of it is to produce a strategic action plan along with costings that go with that. Several of our forum members in the past have commented previously that the existing Caerphilly ROIP is we basically put everything we could think in there. So there's no way it could all be implemented. So that's why we need to sort of prioritize that. In terms of the local access forum and the regional setting up of one of these, this is progressing. I did ask at the last meeting for volunteers to sit on this. I've had one come through. I've bagged 3 places to sit on this group. It's my intention to send the brief out to our 3 representatives, if I can get 3 representatives, to be able to have a hands-on approach as to how access is developed within not just Caerphilly but the whole of Gwent. So I am looking still for 2 more volunteers to sit on that group. The date of the first meeting of the group will be the 14th of July. I think that's fairly much tied down, and it will probably be somewhere in Torvine. So Cwmbran or Blaenavon, I would have imagined, would be the meeting venue. But it's my intention, when I've got 3 volunteers, and I would like 2 more from today's meeting, please, is to hand out the brief to those people to comment on, and then be actively involved in the development of that thereafter. The third point about it is the local delivery. And apart from having a small capital allocations, I think that the key element for us is that we have 4 trainees appointed across the former Gwent, one of which is based in Caerphilly. So we've effectively got 1 officer working on our rights of way maintenance as a benefit of the project. There are some ongoing problems over the training of these trainees, and some issues we've got there. But I think as a partnership, we've got our contingencies covered on that, so I don't need to be too worried about it. So the capital allocations that's given with that, as well as the hands-on spade, should we say, that we've got, is spent on things such as just generally physical works on our rights of way, the installation of small bridges, not significant bridges, and the general sort of day-to-day management of our rights of way network. Now that funding finishes next year, so we are, as a consortium, putting together a package to try to get some sort of continuation funding. Probably won't be in exactly the same form as it is now, but we are looking at the longer term of how we can keep our opportunities for access funding open. I think that's what I wanted to say on that, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Phil. Thanks for that presentation. Leads us on to item number 7, health and well-being initiatives. I believe Des Jones is going to give a presentation there.
Yes, morning everybody. Thank you very much for inviting me along. As Phil has already described, my role is part of the Gwent Green Grid project. And my specific role within that is health and well-being coordinator. So as Phil described, the Gwent Green Grid project is a 3-year Welsh Government funded project with the aim of improving green infrastructure across the 5 local authorities that make up the Gwent area. Most of the Gwent Green Grid team are based in Monmouthshire, but I'm hosted by Caerphilly, which I'm really happy about. In a previous life, I worked as a healthy schools coordinator for Caerphilly, so I know my way around the authority quite well. As I said earlier, the project was meant to be 3 years in duration, but because of COVID and lockdown, it's kind of been condensed to some extent. And most of the activities have taken place over the last kind of 6 months, and will continue to do so for the next year. I was brought into post 7 weeks ago now, I believe. So it's very much been a case of having to hit the road running. And my specific remit as a health and wellbeing coordinator is really to initiate, support and facilitate projects that create opportunities for people to become more active and engaged in green spaces, and in doing so improve their health and well-being. I'm sure all of you are aware. I think lockdown, if it's taught us one thing, is access to some of those green spaces is key to kind of mental health, and simply by encouraging people to become more active in those green spaces, I think it's got a massive positive contribution to people's mental well-being. So I think that's really important. In terms of my approach, I think there's an element of pragmatism, because there's 12 months of the project remaining, and I've got a brief to kind of initiate and support at least 20 health and wellbeing projects across the 5 local authorities. And those of you who've been involved in health and wellbeing to any degree will realise that 12 months is not a long period of time to do anything meaningful. So my approach has been very much to kind of look at some of the priorities within the public service boards and the work of the integrated wellbeing networks that exist across the 5 local authorities, and to try and align my work with those integrated wellbeing networks. Those integrated wellbeing networks tend to operate around areas that have been designated as having, significant health inequalities. So, for example, in Caerphilly, those areas are Bargoed, the Upper Rumney Valley, and areas around Risca. So a lot of liaison with public health on some of those things. And also for me, it's not necessarily initiating things from the ground upwards, as I would probably like to do if I had a bit longer, but actually recognising local expertise and groups that are already active within those communities and try to add value to some of their work. So, you know, obviously I have a small amount of funding attached to my role, and that's always helpful in trying to initiate projects or extend some of the work of those local groups. I was just going to give you a couple of examples of some of the work that has started, which might give you a flavour. I mean, so in Caerphilly, I've had links with John Hall from the Parks team. Historically, he's had some contacts with mental health nurses in the Nrw Health Board. They've done a collaborative project with local primary schools, which involves getting some of the primary school classes up to Park Penachta. We do some nature-themed work with them in the park, but then the mental health nurses do some work around kind of mindfulness and mental health and well-being as well. And there's 4 sessions for each of the classes that engage, one in autumn, one in winter, one in spring, one in summer, and kind of the nature themes are around trees and plants, animals, birds and insects. And then the mental health kind of themes are around awareness of yourself, awareness of others, kind of 5 ways into well-being and being together. So it's kind of low level kind of well-being kind of interventions, working with primary schools. And it's very much about developing the resilience of children to kind of deal with kind of what they need to deal with in school and through the course of life, really. So that's one example of a project that I'm involved in the delivery of in Caerphilly. And I thought I'd give you a flavour of one of the other projects, which is outside of Caerphilly, but as I said, my remit is fairly broad. I work across the 5 local authorities. So I'm involved in a project in Ringland, which is one of the priority areas in Newport. And we are doing a project there. As those of you who are familiar with Ringland will know, it's an area of high deprivation, a lot of community issues there. And I've been working with a guy called Chris Partridge, who works on forest spaces. He's based in Blaenau-Gwent, but he's agreed to do some work in other local authorities. He's going to come down and deliver a programme in Ringland Forestry. Initially, it was going to just be the local community, but then he highlighted the fact that previously some ex-servicemen had some positive benefits from being involved in that programme. So we've extended the project. We've made contact with the Ex-Serviceman Institute or Society in Newport, and we've identified some other ex-servicemen who would benefit from that approach. And it's about getting out into the woodland, a little bit of bushcraft, but it's about getting people together in green spaces and kind of talking and sharing experiences. And it's very much a kind of mental health and well-being project there. So those are just 2 small examples of the work that I'm involved with. It's still early days, and a lot of my work at the moment is just getting out there, meeting people, and identifying key people in local authorities that I can work with and utilise their expertise.
Thank you very much indeed. It's quite an extensive programme that you are involved in. Obviously, it's just a short title on our agenda, but by Jove, it's quite a lot of work that goes on and behind all the scenes, especially involving 5 local authorities. So it's a lot of time is spent travelling and probably on the phone and one thing and another. Thank you very much indeed. I see that Councillor Chris Morgan has a wish to speak, and you're on mute at the moment.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. It's just I just to say to through the chair to Derek, fantastic, really interested in that project. I'm really I got a big involvement with canal restoration, canal cleaning as part of my volunteering for the Waterway Recovery Group over the past 25 years, and I really believe that that health and well-being, which involves water-based activities, should be something that we should be bringing into the Caerphilly borough, especially considering we've got a beautiful stretch of the Monmouthshire Canal, which runs from Pontywayn to the Darren at Risca, which is perfectly capable of taking boats. I know there was a lady at Pontywayn who was looking at putting like canoeing and certain craft onto the canal, and based on using on attracting people, you know, with mental health issues and trying to benefit that way. So I know that's something that that is ongoing at the moment, and I've been asked to look into. Have you had anything with canoeing or any water-based sort of activities?
Nothing as yet. Caerphilly Adventures obviously would be my thought in terms of opportunities maybe to get something like that going. But yeah, very receptive to ideas along those lines, and I'll certainly make the inquiry. Sorry, Councillor Morgan. So which stretch of the canal did you say you were particularly interested in?
It's the part that the borough owns. It's from Pontywayn, which is the entrance to the Cwmcarn Scenic Drive, and it goes all the way down to the Darren just outside Risca. So obviously you mentioned Risca as part of one of your initiatives. So it's you know it's quite apt actually.
Yeah, and quite close to Cwmcarn where Caerphilly Adventures are based. So you know, perhaps some opportunities to engage with Caerphilly Adventures there, and maybe explore opportunities to get some, you know, sort of kayaks or canoes down on the canal, and maybe sort of link that into some kind of mental health and well-being kind of resilience program.
Exactly, and if you know, if you want my contact details, we can email me whatever, and we can be nice to get together and discuss this project further.
That would be brilliant. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. Thank you, Derek.
Thanks, thanks, Chris. Councillor Williams, yes.
Yes, thank you, Derek. Would you be able to get in contact with Markham Primary School, because they like to get out in the countryside, but the problem was we had an outside classroom up in Ollybush, but it was all cut down when NRW cleared all the diseased trees. Yeah. So we got nowhere to go at the moment. Yeah.
Well, Markham Primary School is one I'm familiar with. In as I said, in a previous life when I was working on healthy schools, I did quite a lot of work with Markham Primary School. Very good work. So it would be nice to renew a link with Markham. Actually.
Yeah, great.
I think probably the head teacher has changed since I had contact there, but yeah, without making any promises, Councillor Williams, because obviously I'm spreading myself fairly thinly across the 5 local authorities, I would be very interested in kind of making contact with Markham and seeing what we can offer.
Okay, yeah, Lindsay Pritchard is head teacher now.
Ah, right. Okay, that's a familiar name.
Yeah, and Dave Thomas is deputy head.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you for the link.
Thank you very much.
Does anybody else have any further observations, comments? Thanks, Des, for your input to our meeting today. It's given us a big insight into what else goes on behind the local access forum. Item number 8. General rights of way update.
Yeah, that's me, Andy Fleming. For those that have met me before,
Andy.
my name, all right, Chair. For those that have met me before, my name's Andrew Fleming. I'm the rights of way officer for Caerphilly Borough Council. General updates. As mentioned at the last meeting, we didn't do much during the COVID crisis for obvious reasons. But since then, we've been progressing, and our main efforts have been towards routes to schools, routes to employment areas and community hubs. So that's our priority at the moment. But I did mention at the last meeting about the amount of bridges that were damaged during the heavy rains over the last 3 years. And since our last meeting, the team have managed to install 3 new wooden bridges, in the Pengham area. So we are progressing, maybe at a slow rate, but things are looking a lot better. And going back to what Barry Clark said about Feel Fair Trust, when we're talking about stiles and kissing gates, when the stile is damaged or unrepairable, we do try and get the landowner to install a kissing gate or a DDA gate instead of a stile. But there are legislation moves we need to follow to be able to do this. But we do participate, especially when there's damaged furniture on routes, etc., to try and talk to the landowner so that we can make them routes more efficient for all users. But in some cases that can't happen. And that's the end of my update.
Thank you very much indeed, Andy. Moving on, it's a lot quicker than I anticipated. Item number 9, NRW updates. Is Germany giving something there? Is Germany present?
I believe so, Chair.
Yeah, I am. I'm happy to give an update on the work I've been doing. So, yeah, so basically since August last year, I've been working on the kind of footpath side of things at Cwmcarn and Abercarn Forest. Part of that has been to undertake a review of the public rights of way network to identify any rights of way that require work in order to bring them back into kind of active use after the felling disrupted some of them a number of years ago before the drive reopened last June. But it's also to identify any rights of way which require maybe a bit of modification to make them more usable, or yeah, so that's quite a big piece of work, and I've been working closely with Stefan, rights of way officer for Caerphilly, to do that. And then the other aspect I've been working on is the promoted routes at Cwmcarn Forest. Obviously, there's several walking trails there, but they've never really had a coherent mapping system, if you like, for the trails which correlate with way markers on site. So from a user point of view, we really want to create a comprehensive map that will enable visitors to the forest to enjoy the landscape as easily as possible. So yeah, it's I'm enjoying the work, and I'm enjoying working with various people, including Rob Southall and Maggie Thomas have been really instrumental to feeding in to that work, as well as the local access forum when I presented back in November. So yeah, it's going to see a lot of positive things happening at Cwmcarn and Abercarn this year. I'm probably pretty much 90% the way there with regards to preparing modification applications to submit to Caerphilly Council, and a couple also to Torfaen, a number of which I presented to last November. So yeah, that's an update really on my work for you.
Thanks, Germany. It's at least it's a lot ongoing around the Cwmcarn area and Abercarn, of course. Is there something input from Bob at all?
Yeah, I've got an update from Bob. I don't know whether Germany's got it as well, or which, or I'm happy to give it if we want. I'll just read through.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
Okay, I'll cover Bob's, and also we've got Sarah Tyndall with us as well, who may want to say something. So if I do Bob's first, and then ask if Sarah wants to chip in there after that. So I'm just going to read off script what Bob sent me last night. The first item is that Peter Cloak, who was our regional officer, has retired. Peter's been a good supporter of works in Caerphilly for, well, ever since I was a young lad. He seems to be around always, so I think Pete will be missed. But we've got his replacement is a Rhys Handley, who I don't know, but obviously we'll be making efforts to sort of build our bridges with him as soon as possible. So I've got the contact details that I'll give to I'll give to be sent out with the minutes for Rhys. And Bob's update really is just the works that his team have been doing. They've been carrying out their sort of normal day-to-day vegetation maintenance works in the area, pretty much as Jimmy outlined. They've been unblocking paths which have been blocked through tree felling and the like. The official opening of the Forest Drive at Cwm Carn is planned for the 6th of July, and he's hightailing it, provided his car is now working, hightailing it to a meeting on that this afternoon, as I understand. The public rights of way review in the Cwm Carn Forest is still underway. Again, as Gemini has outlined, they're working out some sort of diversion orders and that at the moment in consultation with Stefan Denbury and Andy Fleming. They've been concentrating sort of the Cwm Carn North area, including Abercarn, and also producing some walking maps and panels for the Cwm Carn site itself. There are new NRW no cycling signs going up. They're being piloted in Cwm Carn Forest, along with updated way markers, which they're doing with the Caerphilly Rights of Way team. As we know from previous discussions at the LAF, there is a particular issue with conflict between cyclists and walkers in the Cwm Carn area. In terms of the actual forest operations update, the Wiley operations have slowed down due to issues with the contractors. That's not elaborated upon, but I've noticed that there seems to be less felling going on in that neck of the woods. And again, in Wiley, there's a community liaison group getting together to represent all the users of the woodlands up there, and to look at what should be reinstated there as part of the development of forestry operations. So Bob does go and make a note if there's any questions from the LAF form, you'd be happy to get back. So if there are any questions, again, if you could send it. I just see Rob Campbell has appeared in the inbox, so I'll admit him now, just to tell him his report has been done. So if there's any questions, then perhaps you can answer them now, going cold. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks for that, Phil, and for what Bob has brought you up to date on.
So there's two things, Chair. There's one whether Bob wants to say anything.
I was about to say, yeah, looking across all the initials across the bottom of my screen, I see RC. That's probably Bob Campbell, is it?
Yeah, it is. Sorry about being late. I had a puncture on the A40 and I'm in the White Valley, but I'm guessing, Phil, you've just read out what I sent to you.
I've just read out your report. Yes, Rob.
Perfect timing. If anyone's got any questions, then I'll take those based on what Phil said, or if they've got any other points they want to pull in.
Okay, thanks for your input there, Bob. Is Sarah Tyndall? Yeah, is Sarah Tyndall present? Is she wishing to give us an update, presentation?
Yes, I'm here. And
good morning,
yes,
welcome.
Good morning, everybody. Yeah, I've just got three things for you today, really, in no particular order. So starting with consultations, which is a sort of standard NRW LAF issue. Only one live at the moment that we're aware of, which is a coal tip safety consultation from Welsh Government. It's based on the need to consult on a report published by the Law Commission with recommendations for a new management regime for coal tip safety. Obviously, it's probably peripheral to access, but it still potentially has impact if you have coal tips in the area. And consultation is open till the 4th of August. So yeah, understandably, there might be some LAFs where that's more relevant than others, But just to note really that in the past there's been criticism that Welsh Government have sort of, in inverted commas, sort of forgotten to consult LAFs on consultation. So it was just sort of to note it's quite encouraging that they've, you know, off their own bat sought LAF consultation there. Next issue was just to sort of just to update from our side really on what we know from access reform, which hopefully is similar to what Phil knows, but you know, you never know. So as far as we're aware, all the consultation reports, or as far as you're probably aware, all the consultation and reports have been completed now. Welsh Government are currently considering all the advice that's come in from all the individual consultations, LAF members, ourselves, over the course of that consultation. They haven't given us any timescales yet for when they will conclude that consideration. So the programme, as far as you're aware, is just continuing. But the latest issue for us is that we've been asked to recruit 2 staff who will continue the programme. They'll be based within NRW, but they are actually Welsh Government posts. So I suppose, if anything, that just shows their commitment to keeping the progress going on that reform programme. And then finally, just another staff change, actually. The land management team have got a new team leader, and so have the people and places team. That's the team I'm based in. The people and places team sort of works across many different aspects and areas of NRW's work, and primarily we're focused on delivering the objectives of the area statement. And so particularly for local access forums, the interest is our healthy, active and connected theme, which has brilliant tie-ins with, you know, the health and well-being agenda that was discussed earlier, and pretty much everything potentially that a LAF is interested in. Our new team leader is Juliet Michael, and I know Phil knows that name, and some of you may remember that name from who were long-standing members. Juliet, I think, probably has been the representative from our side on your LAF in the past. She's got a track record of working on the Come Outside project, which was sort of linking hard to reach groups and sort of aspects of making outdoor access sort of acceptable, available and memorable to those groups. And she's just come off 2 years secondment working with our access and recreation policy team. So we're hoping she's going to bring a new perspective to the work that we're able to do in the south. That was it from me.
Okay, thank you, Sarah, and for all your presentations from your colleagues. That concludes that. We move on now to item number 10, priority orders.
Yes, Chair. This
Phil.
is I haven't got Maggie Thomas up on my list in front of me, so I assume she's apologised. She did say whether she wasn't sure whether she was going to be well enough to attend the meeting today. But for the members' recollection, should we say, for the last meeting, Maggie was wanting to question the council's order in which we deal with modifications to the rights of way map, and I said, well, you know, basically, if she could prepare a report to put to the LAF herself, then, you know, we could discuss it as a LAF and officers, you know, and give the necessary responses. Maggie has prepared a paper. You know, I've had that. That she was going to prepare, and I've given that to my officers to be able to, you know, have a meaningful response to some of the questions that she was likely to raise. I think we have to defer as recommended this agenda item until she attends and presents her own report. However, it might be useful, Chair, for Stefan to sort of outline a couple of the main bullet points that he's raising in advance of the next meeting, so members are at least aware of the types of issues that are going to be coming up, and they can look into it further detail themselves should they want to. So I think perhaps if Stefan has just a minute or two, basically just to outline what the issues are that are going to be discussed.
Okay, thanks, Phil. Yeah, taking forward, has Stefan got those points handy?
I have. I've got them in front of me, Chair.
Excellent.
I won't read them sort of word for word, because I'll obviously let Maggie do that when she does her presentation. I think sort of the main points that Maggie's put to us at the moment are the number of outstanding applications for adding paths to the definitive map under the Wildlife and Countryside Act 1981. We have said this, I think, in past meetings, in that we do have quite a number outstanding. The numbers that I've got at the moment is we do have 97 outstanding applications to add paths to the definitive map. In defence of that, we have 96 which have been dealt with or have been closed because they haven't met the necessary requirements of that. So we're sort of halfway through things. Just to give a little bit more background, obviously for any of the new members of the forum, the oldest application that we've got is dated 1982. So obviously it's 40 years old and hasn't been dealt with as yet. And it's something that we're obviously aware of, mindful of, in that Maggie's brought a couple of points. And obviously the older these applications get, the more chance there is that evidence is lost through the users who originally applied. If, for example, they were elderly at the time, they may well no longer be with us and unable to provide that first-hand knowledge and evidence that is quite critical in assessing these issues. There was a policy put through a report to the Rights of Way Cabinet Committee in 2014, which basically gave an idea and indication on how officers are to deal with issues, with the applications as they come in, and sort of give a couple of key points as to which ones should take priority over others. Without any other factors, the applications are dealt with at the moment in date order that they've come in. So obviously the one from 1982 should be the next one that is dealt with. The Rights of Way Cabinet Committee, however, agreed a number of points in that applications should be dealt with as a priority. Firstly, if they're affected by planning applications for the site. So if there's a development proposed, the chances that that route could be lost, destroyed, is very high, and therefore it was determined that it was a high priority that those matters be determined sooner rather than later. Similarly for land for sale, although not necessarily likely to remove the right, or sorry, not the right, the way that the public are using, or perhaps destroy it, but it may well bring it into question by enclosing the land with fences that perhaps didn't exist previously. Thirdly was that any route that provided a useful link to the community or to elderly users, and I think we can perhaps read a subtext into anybody with any mobility issues as well. That should be dealt with, particularly if it provides the useful link and something that the public are very keen on making use of. I think it's fourth was anything that's got a statutory declaration. So basically landowners can deposit with the authority a declaration, a statement and a plan. The plan is to indicate their land holding, and the declaration that they make is to the effect that they admit to any public rights of way that are recorded on the definitive map over their land, but they do not admit to providing permission or any other rights of access over their land. This has to be renewed every 10 years in Wales, and they basically maintain that declaration with the authority. If they do have a declaration covering that land, then that needs to be taken into consideration if an application is provided to seek the addition of a public right of way onto the definitive map. If the user evidence includes the time at which there's a statutory declaration in place, then that cannot take effect. It has to be looked at perhaps earlier when there may not have been a statutory declaration to see if a public right of way has come into existence through use prior to a declaration being made. And then lastly, it is noted as creation agreements. This is effectively where officers have the ability to contact the landowner initially, discuss the matter, or at least point out some matters with them. The landowner may be entirely agreeable to there being a public right over their land, and they may well agree to what we refer to as a creation agreement, whereby they enter an agreement where the right of way is created by agreement, is then recorded on the definitive map. It basically takes away the necessity to fully investigate all matters and go through considerable amount of work. If the landowner's positive and in agreement, then it shortcuts the whole process. And that was something that was brought up as what officers should look at as part of prioritising the workload when it comes to these applications. And that's it from me.
Thank you, Stefan. Anybody got anything further to add? Ruth, I see that you've indicated.
Yes, please. Just a very quick clarification for me. Can you clarify that the original 2026 deadline for updating the definitive map and putting in applications has now gone completely in Wales?
As far as I'm aware, it was never enacted in Wales anyway, and I believe it's going to disappear in England as well. So the 2026 cut-off, which was originally proposed, is not in effect now. So we can carry on receiving applications beyond that date.
Oh, great. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Ruth. If there's nothing further on item number 10, we'll move on to number 11, access reform programme.
I'll take this item, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Phil.
Sarah mentioned that, about what's going on in the sort of broader access reform programs. I'm going to talk purely about Group 1, if you recall, there's several groups, which is related to, how LAFs operate primarily. But just to pick up a couple of things that Sarah did say, firstly is about the coal tip sort of consultation. I'm not sure I've seen that ourselves, but in sort of broad, Caerphilly, I think, has either the most or the second most sites under investigation in Wales. Not surprising, it's a big local authority, we've got lots of tips there, and there are implications for access through that. But anyway, that was just to support what Sarah was saying, that there's this active programme going on with Welsh Government, and luckily we managed to get some money in from them as well. So if you're in Penalty and you see a lot of JCBs going on, we've got two projects going on there. One is through this coal tip restoration and making good some of the drainage that we've got on there and washouts that we've had. Moving on to the agenda item itself, we've had the paperwork through for the Group 1 reforms, which is a review of the legislation and guidance for the operation of LAFs. This was signed off towards the end of March, the 22nd of March, and it's just one part of the access reform programme which is going on more widely, which is, in a nutshell, is to reduce the complexity for users and path users and realise financial savings to local authorities and landowners. Is kind of the sort of theme of where it's going. Now, interestingly, there's a bit of sort of preamble to this. When talking about LAFs, I was quite interested to find that, only 16 of the 22 LAFs in Wales are actually in place. And in fact, there's 10% of LAFs haven't actually met since 2017, which I found, I was surprised to find that. So I think this is partly what the legislation is looking to address. Obviously, COVID wouldn't have made life any easier under those circumstances. And they were also reporting how few local authorities actually did their annual reports. So in short, the recommendations come as about 12 or so recommendations in the programme put forward. Firstly, and I'm just going to sort of basically very broadly summarise these, and pardon me, but I'm going to read off a sheet in front of me here. There's the issue of profile and awareness, where NRW are going to be carrying out further work to identify good practice between LAFs of how we raise our profiles. Secondly, that there's the flexibility to discuss matters relevant to our remit. And what's proposed in there is that we do, pretty much as we do now, we set our own agendas. However, there needs to be more and improved guidance on what Welsh Government's key priorities are so that we can work towards those. So again, there'll be revised and clearer guidance on issues such as well-being plans. Thirdly, in terms of how the LAFs actually operate, NRW want to gather more information on how we actually work. Fourthly, there was a matter of training. And as I said earlier, I'll open the door for you if we see any specific training for our LAF, but this was wider. It's regarding the range of things that LAFs should be trained on, for example, equalities, and to standardise the guidance that are given to local access groups across Wales. Then there's procedures about how we establish our LAFs. And how we address non-activity. Well, that's not really applicable to us. It's sort of the sort of headline figures that I sort of gave earlier on. It then goes on to make recommendations about membership. And as you will recall, we kind of work on the thirds principle to ensure sort of landowners and users are equally represented. It's worked quite well in Caerphilly. They're going to retain that balance. Although there's going to be, they're looking at how there can be some sort of transition and continuity of LAF membership. Again, this LAF recommended in the past that the 3-year period wasn't really long enough. So they're recommending that there's some latitude whether we go for anywhere between 3 and 5 years for the tenure of a LAF. Advertising. Our responsibilities to advertise in the press will be taken away. We'll just be able to do it all electronically. The administration, there won't be any need any further to send everything out paperwork wise. We can do it all electronically. Annual reports, and you'll be aware as our LAF, we haven't produced an annual report for a number of years. What we do is we publish the minutes of our meetings effectively and call those our annual, the fourth of the year are our annual report. They're going to do away with the need for doing annual reports anyway, because so few authorities are doing them. But what NRW will do is then they'll be gathering data from us in other forms. May not be aware when you sign up to join the LAF, but all of your details are sent to NRW, the full membership of the LAF. That's no longer going to be a requirement, and we only have to notify the chair, deputy, and who the secretary is. They also raise the issue of the guidance that we're given for the LAF of how we operate that hasn't been revised for 20 years now. So they're looking into producing revised guidance. And finally, it's a matter of what available information we let go, and they want to look into further of how, should we say, the access reforms that they're planning to undertake can be spun into our daily operations. So that was the sort of key findings from the review of the forums themselves. But again, it's sort of as an aside to it, almost in the text that supports this, they were looking into the costs of running a LAF, and it was quite. They admittedly say that it was difficult to undertake this exercise, as some LAFs are not operating, so there's obviously zero cost. Some LAFs only meet twice a year, so kind of the Caerphilly LAF we do meet 4 times a year, so we're perhaps at the sort of upper end of this. But they were saying that the average time they thought for a LAF to operate in terms of local government support time was 10 days a year. And that's covering the secretariat and management of it, with another sort of up to 4 days for the presentations and officers to provide further information for the LAFs. So the actual costs associated with running a LAF across Wales were pretty nominal, actually running sort of anywhere from 50 to 200 quid, and we don't actually spend an awful lot of cash money on running the LAF, teas and coffees when we meet in person, and that really is about it. But I did well, before I go into that, they say that then the NRW support for each LAF is probably 4 days a week, 4 days a year, sorry. and they also then have, you know, some of their own running costs that seem to run at about £3,000 a year. But I did a little sort of just scribbling on the back of one of my fag packets to work out what it was that Caerphilly did, and I fancy as our laugh, we probably run at double those figures. Not so much in terms of the cash, but in terms of the sort of officer support time that's put into running the laugh. So, you know, when I kind of guess that, you know, this is why NRW come to our meetings. A, we're having them, and B, that, you know, we do put quite a lot of resource into supporting access in Caerphilly, and, you know, and not only welcome but respect the views that we get coming back from this membership. So that's the report on terms of access reform programme. Group 1 chair. When other reports come through from them, then I'll obviously report those as well.
Thank you, Phil. It's, for that input. Anybody any comments on that? So with that, we move on to item 12, Transport for Wales update. I believe, Phil, you got a comment?
I got this, Chair.
Oh, thanks, Stefan.
Just to make the forum aware, and again for those new members, Transport for Wales have approached us through a consultant with regards to a number of level crossings on the Cardiff to Rumney line. They are due imminently to commence electrification of the line. This brings a number of issues for them with regards to safety of the public who have access to the line on public rights of way via these level crossings. Predominantly, you've got issues with obviously the electrification, although these are overhead wires, so shouldn't affect your average pedestrians. But what they've also stated is that the rolling stock, the trains themselves, will be faster. They will be quieter because they're electric rather than diesel, and they will also be more frequent in that they're proposing a more frequent service. Between us, we've identified a number of sites where public rights of way can access the lines, and Transport for Wales through the consultant are bringing together proposals to reduce the safety implications as for them as a liability, but also obviously for the public using the level crossings to access the public rights of way. This brings us to this afternoon's site visit, which we're going to look at footpath at Wernvie off Van Road in Caerphilly. And if I share my screen, I'll pop this in the chat as well, so you'll be able to access this. Hopefully you can see the plan. Effectively, we are planning on meeting at the NRW car park off Van Road, Coed Park of Van. There's a large enough area there, and it's a short walk to the footpath where we'll be coming to Kevin Carney Lane, and then the footpath runs roughly to this point where we will have a look at the level crossing itself and the issues that are affecting the public right of way, and obviously Transport for Wales as the line operator. As I said, I'll pop this in the chat as well so that you can access it yourselves. Effectively, we've looked at this one site and what we can do or what can be done to mitigate safety issues. Again, this will be looked at on site where it's perhaps easier for us to physically demonstrate what can be done to make it safer. Although we may well be on a slightly different page to Transport for Wales and their desires.
Thanks, Stefan. I see, Phil, you've expressed a wish to make a comment there, and then with Ruth.
I'll take my hand down in a sec. I just wanted to I want to discuss the site meeting in a little bit more detail under under the business I was going to do to find out how many people are likely to attend, just to see whether, in fact, I might as well discuss it now if that's okay, Chair. In so much as you're highly contagious, as I understand, and won't be able to make it.
Unfortunately, yes.
You're not jumping in my car with me on this occasion. I know that. And I was going to say that if there's no desire to have the site meeting, people can't make it, then we can either postpone it. So I know you want to attend it, Chair. Or we could do it another date when you're slightly less lurgy. But what I'll do myself to save you coming, well, let's do it now. Who is planning on attending, or who wants to attend site? Because we're more than happy to attend site this afternoon as programmed. Councillor Morgan, yeah, 1. Nige, thumbs up. 2. Well, I tell you what. Well, let's run with it as you said, Stefan, as we've got at least 2 there to run through the issues. And Mike, I'll arrange something to take you down separately, and you can buy me a cup of coffee or something afterwards. Then. Okay, yeah. We'll run with it as is. Okay, thank you. Ruth's got a hand up as well.
Yeah, Ruth.
Oh, sorry, I was just going to ask what time the meeting was, but obviously you're going to go through that now.
Phil?
I think it was 2:30 on site.
Yes, well, we were planning on meeting at 2:30 on site at the location in the sort of in the mountain bike sort of car park just off Van Road there. 2:30, unless anybody's got any objection. Should we keep it at 2:30, or do people want to bring it forward? Stick with 2:30.
Yeah, I'm happy with 2:30.
Yeah, let's stick with 2:30. 2:30 in just up from Van Road, the Forestry Commission car park. Ruth, if you want to come.
Thanks, Phil. So moves us on now to item number 13. Is it grants? I believe, Phil, you may have some comments to make there. Oh, sorry, Barry, I didn't see you indicating that it's going back to item the. You want to comment on the
yes, please.
On the level crossing, is it?
Yes, please. Just generally, it's what I'm going to say is going to sound a bit soft, stupid, and old-fashioned, but they would not have had some of these problems if they'd continued to man the level crossings. I know that it's unlikely they would do that in the position of the one where you're going through this afternoon, but if they continued to man the level crossings, there would be a lot less problems that they're facing now. That was it. Okay,
thank you very much indeed. On the question of the level crossings, I had the experience of walking down in Tongwynlais Radair area. I crossed over from, I think it's at Pew's Garden Centre there, following the footpath, and brought me out into Tongwynlais. And there the footpath crosses over the busy Aberdare Pontypridd line. And I think they've got some sort of, there's some traffic lights there indicating whether it's, how safe it is to cross over. The line there is very, very straight, and you can the trains must be going at a fair lick when they're coming that way. Barry.
Thank you. That particular crossing, what they intend to do currently is at the river end of that path. They're going to put a road parallel to the river, then it's going to follow parallel to the motorway, go over a railway bridge, then turn again towards Pontypridd, taking the new road down onto the original road which you saw, which goes straightforwardly across.
Hey, wow, some extensive works then.
Oh yes, and of course it's going to make it. Yeah. Anybody who had a nice easy walk before, it's going to be not quite as easy. But, yeah, that's what they're doing.
And another hill to climb on the way home. Yes. Okay, thanks. Right. Number 13 then, Phil, grants.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Chair. Just a very brief update on where we are with grants. It's a bit of a standing thing on the agenda for LAF, where we're going, what funded bids we're planning on putting in, and what we're doing with our existing funding. We've run through the sort of Gwent Green Grid side and the posts in place, who are doing both practical works on the ground and the sort of education, hearts and mind type works going on. We've also got a continuation up on Mynydd Mine, Tumbalm and the access improvements we're doing in conjunction with Torvine Council. So we do have some operations going on the ground, along with sort of repair from Storm Dennis, which is still ongoing. Despite it being over a year later, there was significant damage done from that. So things are operating on the ground. But in terms of how we're going forward, as some of our grant streams are coming to an end, what we're looking at actively at the moment is a grant stream called the Shared Prosperity Fund, and this is kind of it's too simplistic to put it, but I will put it this way: it's almost a sort of replacement grant for some of our European funding that has been lost. So we're going through an exercise in the council at the moment of what our priorities will be, and we're not and this process goes on now until August, when applications have to be made. Now, for our point of view, I think it's in the three which have kind of got over the initial line and being taken forward are one, a continuation of funding for some posts in the Rural Development Programme. Now, those obviously have both access works, hearts and minds, and practical that they've done a lot on. We've had updates from those before. There's also a bid being put in by, ostensibly led by tourism, for Cwm Carn, which involves an extension of the offer there, but most importantly for us, I think, is an extension of the Gwent Green Grid. So I've tabled a motion for that, and that includes a continuation of the work that Des does, because he's only employed for a year now for the future. So whilst it's looking promising, but the fat lady, so to speak, is not singing yet. So we're not over the line, but that's kind of the intention of where we're going in terms of Shared Prosperity Fund. So those are the main projects we're supporting. We're also having our standard income coming in from Welsh Government, who as I'm reading it, have now approved a 3-year package of funding and access to the countryside. It's almost flagged as tourism again, but it's far wider than that, with the access improvement grant. So we're putting together our package for the coming year. It kind of runs a little bit out of sync, what I'm going to say here, because I'd kind of got my thoughts together in terms of response to the items on priority orders and the issues we've got in terms of manpower on that. But it is my intention to put forward for a supporting post for the Rights of Way team as part of that grant over the next 3 years. The Rural Development Programme has still got some existing funding left in its budgets, of which access is eligible. In fact, the Caerphilly landscape project, based around, I'm looking at Councillor Morgan here, around Rudry and the works they're doing around there, I think they're putting in for some more support for practical works on the ground under that one. Then the big programme that we will have all, funding programme that we've seen on TV, the levelling up funding, which is an allocation given to Caerphilly. Again, there's some potential for us to hang on the coat sleeves of 2 projects. Caerphilly are putting in 3, as I understand, priority projects. One again is for Cwm Carn and developing that as a sort of mega tourist hub. Well, obviously we do all the support works for Rights of Way in the woodlands, Tumbalm, on the uplands around there, but also the prospect of doing so again down in the Caerphilly basin as part of renewed leisure provision, improved leisure provision that's going on. So they might be, whilst we're not a direct recipient of that grant, I'd like to think that we'd be able to tack onto something along those lines. In terms of not necessarily financially smaller, but more peripheral grants to the mainstream, some of you, hopefully all of you, would have seen that Caerphilly is the host authority for the COVID memorial woodland, which is over Caerphilly. So we do have money allocated to us from Welsh Government to undertake. It's primarily tree planting, being a woodland scheme, but it's also for new access and access improvements as part of that. So we'll be looking to tap into that funding stream as well this year, and hopefully over coming years. To provide both physical improvements on the ground and hopefully officers, revenue support for officers to maintain and manage these things. So that's really sort of holistically what's going on in the grants world at the moment.
Thanks,
That's
Phil.
it, Chair, for that report.
Thank you. Any comments from other members at all? Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, Phil, there's a lot of this money been spent further down the valley. What about Man Mall and Hollybush having some of this grant work done? I keep asking for different lanes to be tidied up and cut back, but never seem to be any funding for us up here.
Let it never be said you missed an opportunity, councillor. Yeah. The two things.
Councillor Bevan have finished, is he? So are you going to take it up?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's as I said, several of those grants. So three things are the answer to this, I suppose. I'll give you. Starting with the sort of larger projects we've had on there. As I say, we're kind of hanging on the shirt sleeves of two projects which are not geographically in that area. We're hoping to get bonus money, for want of a better expression, on that. Secondly, we are limited to where our projects can take place in some of the grant streams themselves. That's not to say money's not going up into the Markham ward and that area, because it certainly is both maintenance and new money, as you know, through works that you've been involved with John Hull. But perhaps the third point on that is that we still do have our maintenance budgets that we are spending up in Argoed. What we don't have is an identified project to put a funding bid in for the moment. Now, that is not the same as saying that we're not doing that, because I talked about the regional access strategy that we're preparing, and obviously with Blaenau Gwent, that's quite important, because you are our interface with that, and that I don't want to necessarily foresee what's happening, but it seems fairly likely to me that one of the primary accesses regionally is going to be down the Sahawi Valley, because that is a missing link. So kind of that's where my artillery is aiming at the moment for the Argoed ward.
Thank you, Phil.
Thanks, Phil. Thanks, Councillor Williams. Which moves us on to item number 15. No, I missed something out, didn't I? The challenge walk, item number 14, the challenge walk.
I put this purely on for information for the membership. The challenge walk took place during May. It was the Tumbalum trek this year. Nice day for it. I think the numbers were slightly down on our previous Tumbalum walk, which was over 3 years ago, but we still had 350 plus people turn up for the selection of walks that we had. Well received. Thankfully, from my point of view, nobody got lost. The police weren't involved or any of that, which is always a relief come 7 o'clock on a Saturday evening, when you actually get that call that you can down your phone and so it went well. I think people enjoyed the walk. Well, in fact, I noticed on one of the staging points on exiting, I saw you there taking place on, I think, the short distance walk. If I
yes,
you want to say something.
Yeah, I thought that just sort of try it out and see what it's all about. It's one of the first walks I've done of the new year, is actual fact. So I just wondered what distance I could manage. But I must say it was the weather was ideal. Thanks for organising that. But the location, and it was completely new to me, and it's the timing with all the bluebells out. It was very picturesque, and the birds singing as well. I was so encouraged by it. I managed to get hold of the maps covering the whole of the walks, and so I knew I couldn't do the walks on the prescribed on the day. So in my own time, I did the 10-mile walk a day or two later, and so that I thoroughly enjoyed that, but to such an extent that I actually went back and did it in reverse. So as well as starting from Crosskeys and going up over to Mbalum, I actually a day or two later I actually did the whole thing in reverse, and obviously it was really stunning and a really good walk. So I'll do that now. I'm looking to do the rest of the walking, the longer walks in stages. So possibly is that something that could be built on, you know, as an external venture? I don't know, you know, that obviously you've got the, you know, that people may want to sort of be able to, you know, could break the walks up into more manageable distances. Anyway, that's that's my comment, and I just would like to thank Phil and his staff for all the work that they've done in organising the event and laying on the goodie bags as well.
I didn't actually get one.
Oh, you had to do at least 5 miles for one of those.
That's
Right.
me,
Just, anybody any further comments there? No. Right, so moves us on to number 15. Any other business? As any, I think, although Mike Poynton is not present, I believe he has given a contribution. Is that right, Phil?
Yes, so I have dog conflict about to take place outside the front window a second, so just let that pass. You know, yes, Mike got in touch. He sent me an email apologising not being able to attend the meeting. Mike represents the Gwent Ornithological Society, and he sent me an email asking that, you know, our views be known on the sort of countryside, on the revisions to the countryside code. I think it's perhaps a little misplaced. I think it's the Access Reform Bill that he's referring to on this, as that relates more specifically to changes Welsh Government are likely to make to access. And really his key points are that he's not very supportive of this for a number of reasons. For some of the recommendations which may be included. And as a LAF, we've made our comments known on these things you know, before COVID it came through. But I think the message is that we keep bashing away at our national forum to say what these are. And he's particularly concerned about the sort of impact that these deregulations, for want of a better expression, loosening of conditions will have on the wildlife, particularly birds. So he raises the issue that, you know, how under pressure and how declining a lot of our species are here, and effectively the measures proposed or possibly coming in will only exacerbate that position. He refers particularly to the sort of stresses caused by dog walkers or dogs being off leads and the damage that they do to wildlife. So he's trying to go in one stage further, saying it's not really enough to be having a dog on the lead because people don't follow the rules, and perhaps there should be areas where at certain times of the year, you know, dogs in particular, but people perhaps are completely excluded from. You know, he also points out that, you know, whilst walking in the countryside is good for people's sort of mental well-being, you know, if there's nothing out there for people to appreciate in the wildlife, it might well have a detrimental effect on well-being if it's sort of the last bastion of escapism is taken away. He also raises the issue that saying that his society are against the multi-use of footpaths. As you recall, they're looking to bring bikes and horses perhaps on some existing footpaths. As he raises the issue that we have discussed several times as a forum about the conflicts between bikes and walkers in particular. You know, hence we have the representatives from NRW often turn up to talk about Cwmcan, which is a particular problem site. So, you know, his summary is please keep bashing away at the messages that he's got, with the overriding principle. You know, people need to act reasonably when they're in the countryside, which I don't think is anything that we would necessarily disagree with on that. So that was that. Those were Mike's points, Chair. If we could pass them on to the sort of national chairs forum when we have the when we have the chance.
Okay, thank you very much indeed, Phil. Councillor Williams, have you got a comment there?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just a bit of information, really. I found out this week that the inspector in Blackwood, Nrw Updates, is leaving us, and we're having a change. Unfortunately, Nrw Updates has been a big champion for the countryside regarding quad bikes and scramblers. So we've got to start again now, where we used to have, as councillors, a meeting with Nrw Updates once a month. We'll have to start again and see if we can get this going, because it was a big important step for us, where we could have the year of the inspector, and fair play, he did help. So we'll have to try again. And it seems to be the process in Blackwood. You have an inspector, a year or two later he moves on and someone else comes in, and then you're back in square one again. But we carry on. Okay, thanks so much.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Williams.
Yeah, can I sort of back Walter up on this and say, you know, for all of our organisations, if we can all please keep, and I know it must be a fairly thankless task being a police officer sometimes, and there's all sorts of priorities that they do have, but the environment is a priority to a lot of people, you know, and you know, we you know, as your officers, you know, we are permanently fighting this battle, whether it be pushing at an open door or one which isn't quite so open, with the police through things like the public service board which they sit on, you know, through Welsh government who are also leaning on them. So yeah, you know, please just carry on, you know, Walter. Yeah, if you can go, it's a hearts and minds which leads to priorities being set, and we need to be high up on the priority list.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Morgan, you got a comment?
Yeah, going on from what Councillor Williams mentioned, I share his concerns. We got the same down in Bedwas. One thing that we continue to tell our residents is that, you know, any issues with quad bikes and issues in the woods and paths, cycle tracks, you've got to report it. I know the 101 number can be quite frustrating to get through, but you know, these things have got to be reported, because when it's brought up in community council meetings, first thing the police say to us, well, you know, it hasn't been reported. So I think that's a big issue that everybody involved need to make sure incidents are reported. But yeah, we try to keep a good work relationship with the local police inspector and his staff as well. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. Did I see Bob Campbell? Did you want to?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'll just pop in really quickly, backing up both those comments there by the councillors, that if people don't report stuff, it's really hard to convince the police to come out and take action. You can use social media and email now. I did put, I think in the last meeting, I put up the leaflet we've produced in cooperation with the police about ways to report this, and I can't get it right now because I'm sat in a Starbucks, but I will get my hands on another copy of that and send it through that can be recirculated to people. So it is you don't need to sit on the phone for 20 minutes on 101. You can email it, post the incident, bearing in mind that what you're doing is reporting an incident. Don't expect them to rush out with blue lights and a gang of people. What we're doing is building up evidence to mount police operations, and we continually run police operations in the land management team, and we don't tell you about them because we don't want to tell you about them so that people don't know where we're going to be. But we're having a good response rate to that. But yeah, we're at a problem that's been going for 20 years and is getting worse, and we don't seem to be able to work out on it. So it's room for further. I had a discussion yesterday with our new team leader about it, and he's got some interesting views on how we can tackle that going forward. But we will be cooperating with the police in whatever ways we can. But as you said, Councillor Morgan, the key thing is that people report it and we build up evidence to take action. That's it.
Okay, thanks, Bob. Anybody want to add anything further?
Yes, please, Chair. To go with Councillor Morgan, as you say, 101 is the frustration, but I found it better myself to email. You get the same response, but you're not hanging on a phone getting frustrated, your blood pressure going up, you know, but the thing is, you are reporting this incident, which is what's got to be done.
Yeah,
It's a police inspector. He was involved with Nick Smith as well in Torfaen, the MP for that, which he's trying to do a lot in Westminster regarding quad bikes. So the more you report it, the better.
Yeah, and you know, obviously when you're out in the countryside and you see an incident, that's the last thing you want to do is to spend time on your mobile phone if you've got a signal. So yeah, obviously note the details, and when you get a quiet moment when you get home, obviously it can be all logged in with fuller information.
That's it, yeah.
Barry.
Hello.
Hi.
I'm back again.
Yeah, welcome. Do you want to make a comment?
I think it's Nigel. I think it's Nigel's got his hand up, Chair.
Oh, sorry, hands all over the place. Right, sorry. Yeah, Nigel.
Yeah, just a quick one. The site visit, I did make a note of the date. I made a note of the time.
Seems to have lost.
Sorry, no, are you talking about the site visit to view the rail line crossing?
Yes.
Or are you talking about? Yeah. Well, that's this afternoon, but Nigel, 2:30 at Rudry Woodland Car Park.
I won't be able to make this afternoon. I'm sorry.
No. Yeah, in terms of, and we haven't bottomed this out, so I'm glad you said that because it slipped my mind about 2 further volunteers. Slippers haven't got laces on them, so nobody can pretend to be doing these up at this point. 2 further volunteers from our left to come to Torfaen to sit on an advised sort of regional left. I really could do with 2 because I'm sure the other authorities will be sending their quota.
Ruth.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind doing it. The only problem is you said the meeting is on the 14th of July and I couldn't make that. In general, I'd be happy to.
I suspect Ruth, you might be called into action, but can I put you down under the reserve?
Yes, you can, yes. As I say, unfortunately, the 14th of July is the one day I can't make.
Councillor Morgan. Thanks, Ruth.
Yeah, I'm happy to help out if I can.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ta.
Right. So
I suspect it's not going to get any better than that. So I think we have our delegation.
Right. So thank you for your contributions, everybody there. Details of site visit, challenge walk, any other business. I think have more or less covered all aspects. Is anything missing there, Phil?
No, Chair. I think we covered everything on my agenda.
Yeah.
Just about to say for those who are attending the site meeting, 2:30 at the car park, then just off Van Road there.
Okay. And so if there's nothing further anybody wants to raise, I think perhaps we can bring the meeting to a close. I'd like to thank everybody for their contribution.